Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to have videos of every 2026 NFL draft pick by the Miami Dolphins from the Focused on Fins crew, but these day three picks may be somewhat out of order. So, next up is fifth round pick, number 158 overall, Michael Taaffe. And going through the draft guides that I look at, the height and weight for Taft were kind of all over the place. Project Game Day had him at 5'11", 175, had him as a third to fourth round projection. The Touchdown 2026 draft guide from Jack Brentnall had him at 6 foot, 190 pounds, had him at number 148 overall, and the 11th safety on the board with a fifth round draft projection. And then the 2026 low red zone from Simon Clancy had him at 5'11, 190, had him as a fifth to sixth round projection, and he noted that he's a classic overachiever who models his game after Jesse Bates. And then my personal notes from Michael Taaffe, I had him listed as 6 foot 182 per college football reference. Somewhere I had found that he had lined up as a free safety 62% of the time. Had a note that Newt Weston had a difference in his weight, had him at 5'11, 193. Plays with a level of intensity that I enjoy, can play both deep and in the box. Plenty of pre snap movement without being out of position. Always looking to get involved in the action. Dependable tackler. Runs and transitions well with eyes on the quarterback. Not asked to cover in man often, but feel like he's got the skills not to be bad at it. And I also noted that I'm not sure how he's going to test. And then we get on to the testing side of it. So his RAS, relative athletic score, was a respectable 7.82. The worst part of that was his size, which his official size came in at 5'11 and a half, 190 pounds, which I didn't feel was that bad, but I guess compared to other safeties, it is in the lower percentile. But he did have great agility scores. Looking at some of his background stuff, he had back to back state titles in high school, earning defensive MVP honors in both games, including a game where he intercepted Quinn Ewers 2 times. He was a zero-star recruit in 2021, grew up in Austin, Texas, and then walked on at the University of Texas. He is a fifth generation Longhorn, ended up coming out of the draft as a fifth-year redshirt senior who appeared in 13 games in 2022 before moving into a starting role in 2023. 2024, he earned second team All American honors and a Burlsworth Trophy semifinalist. And that goes to the most outstanding college football player who began his career as a walk on. Then last year, he won the Werfel Trophy and was also a member of the All State Good Works team. Both of those are for community service. He also runs Taft's Tackles, which is to raise money for fentanyl abuse, and that stemmed from a close friend that he lost to fentanyl. So, very mature and community oriented player. At the Texas Pro Day, there weren't enough receivers for quarterback Matthew Caldwell to throw to, so after Taft finished his defensive back workout, he then turned around and ran routes for Caldwell so that scouts could see him up close. He is a core four special teams player, right? So that's kickoff coverage, punt return, playing over 700 career special team snaps. And then looking at numbers going from 2024 to last year, 2025, his missed tackle rate dropped from 21.3% down to 9.3%. And then his targets went from 35 to 19, although allowed a similar completion percentage of around 63%. And the passer rating also dropped from 65.2 down to a 54.6. So this is a player that I was higher on than a lot of people going into the draft. And as I went through the film, well, I'm not going to get too much into that. We're going to look at the film, and then I'm going to talk about my opinion about him as we finish up. First up for the film review, we're going to talk about coverages. Going to look at some zone coverages first, then some man coverages next. And when you're looking at players in coverage for safeties, film can be tough to find because there's not a lot of targets into their area. Like we talked about, only 19 of them in 2025. But for the most part, if a safety is doing their job, then you're not going to see a lot of throws into their area. So this first one here, you can see Taaffe lined up deep, just doing a good job of backpedaling, eyes forward, finding the threat, flipping the hips, running deep. Nothing special there, but this is the kind of stuff we want to see out of him. Similar idea here. Now the ball gets thrown the other way, that cornerback gets beat, but that's not on Taaffe, right? If we're just looking at Taaffe, you can see the way that he gets his eyes to the left side of the field, finds his receiver, and keeps a lid on him. Next one here, another one that's not thrown in his direction, but you can see that Taaffe playing the middle of the field and just identifying where that quarterback may want to go with that ball is going to force a throwaway of the ball. On this one, we're again going to get Taaffe playing deep. And this time the ball does go his way, and you can see that he is in great position. That as that ball is thrown, Taaffe just comes over the top. Easy interception. This one here, would like to see Taaffe be more physical at the catch point. You can see here that maybe a little bit late arriving, but more of a behind the receiver wrap up tackle versus what you'd like to see, or at least what I would like to see, if he was a bigger safety in terms of really laying the wood there. Now that is Oscar Delp, so that's a bigger player. That'd be a pretty big impact for Taaffe, but would like to see him be more physical at the catch point. Another one here, ball is thrown short, but Taaffe playing that deep middle. Again, doing a good job, flipping the hips, staying on top of that receiver. On this one again, right, eyes are a little late getting to the receiver, and you can see he ends up just a little short of what could have been, an interception, possibly a pick six. So sometimes his eyes do get locked on the quarterback a little bit too much, and he doesn't find that receiver. And this is an example of that. If he had turned and found Concepcion coming over the middle there, that maybe he could have jumped this and prevented the catch. Another one. Now he runs into the ref on this one, so you give him a little bit of grace on that. But the receiver that's crossing behind him, the tight end there, he's the one that makes the catch. Would have liked to see Taaffe be able to see that tight end coming across the middle of the field and get a little deeper here. No reason to come up on that receiver to the outside. So another situation where would have liked to see his eyes find that receiver, turn, get depth, and run with that tight end crossing over the middle of the field. And then last one here, this is going to be where he does a better job of that. So now he's backpedaling, gets those eyes to the inside, sees that receiver, and then he just crosses in front. I think that was a game-sealing interception here. But you can see that, he has the range to get deep when he needs to. When his eyes are disciplined and he's able to read the quarterback, find the receiver, that he does a good job of timing and jumping routes. So, room to improve, but I do like his ability in zone coverage. And then just a few reps of man coverage here. On this one, you can see him in the center of the field. He's going to turn and run with that receiver. Nice coverage on the deep route. Watch that one again. And some of these may be zone coverages that he just attaches to a man. They can be difficult to diagnose sometimes over here. Now on this one does look like more of a zone coverage, but because he attaches to this crosser late, I grouped it with the man coverage reps. But I do want to kind of reference that one earlier that we were talking about where he ran into the ref and couldn't find that receiver. On this one, you can see that he does a good job. He's up in the similar spot, eyes on the quarterback, then finds that crosser and does a much better job there of attaching to him. On this one, you get the running back leaking out of the backfield, back shoulder throw there, Taaffe in good position. Now, this ends up being a drop, but because Taaffe is in good position, it takes a tough adjustment from the running back. So I thought he did a good enough job on this one of covering that running back on the back or out of the backfield and making him make a tough back shoulder adjustment to that play. This one here going to be more of a scramble drill. See Taaffe on the top of the screen there. And for this one, just like the way that he attached to his receiver early, stayed with him as long as he needed to, right? And then he's working back across the field, looking for, some kind of across your body type throw there. And then last one that we're going to have for Taaffe, this one is going to be a completion. Just gets the tight end leaking out of the backfield, but on this one, thought he did a good job of covering ground, making a secure tackle, and tackling for a short gain, even though he gave up a completion on this play. Next set of film that I want to look at is Taaffe coming from depth as a run defender. And this is not a, enforcer. He's not going to come up and lay the big hit. But you can see as we look through these reps that he does come up and is willing to stick his nose in there. He's willing to sacrifice his body to make a tackle, right? Again, would like to see him do a better job of exploding into that tackle, wrapping up, but he gets there, arrives, right? And he does a solid job of getting these runners to the ground most of the time, right? Another one here coming from depth. Drag down tackle, but a tackle nonetheless. Another one there, tackling kind of high, right? Not going to work against everybody, but does a good enough job of wrapping him up and, letting the party get there to take him down the rest of the way. Another one there. Now this is where, right, he's going low, and this is where he probably should be going more often, right? That we're going low, taking out some legs as opposed to trying to tackle high like we saw in some of those other ones. Another one here doing a good job of rotating up on the motion, but then just continuing through and making the stop on the run. And then last one here, again, just a good job being patient there. As the cleanup tackler there, would like to see him be a little more of an enforcer, drive that guy back, but you can see that he is involved in the tackle, but not going to be a knock you back type tackler either. And then a few negative reps of him coming from depth. And all three of these are going to be kind of similar. There's a blocker involved, and he's not physical playing through these blocks. You can see that here, receivers coming down and try to crack him. Taaffe kind of dips to the inside, dips too far, and he's not able to make the tackle. Now he gets a hand on that one. But here we're going to see a similar type play, right? Lead blocker comes up through. Taaffe is not physical through the block, ends up getting knocked down, and that runner's able to get through. And then last one here, going to, again, be very similar. We've got a lineman getting up to the next level, and not going to expect Taaffe to be able to take on a lineman, but because he's avoiding that block, ends up opening a lane for a touchdown. So it's not all perfect coming from depth, but there is more good than bad when we look at those reps. And then as we look at more box-oriented run stops, so down near the goal line, they actually use Taaffe out on the edge quite often. And here you can see he's doing a good job of squeezing that edge, able to get in, make the tackle, preventing the touchdown on this first play. And playing in the box is not something that I would ask Michael Taaffe to do often, but you can see that he's willing to sacrifice his body. Right here, we have Will Kazmarek coming across on the split flow action, and Taaffe's never going to take that on two-hand stack shed, but doing a good job there of sacrificing his body and creating a pile, and that allows the cavalry to get there and make the play. Another one here. And this one, right, we talked about him avoiding blocks earlier, and this is one where he does a better job of it and gets away with it. He's able to get away from this tight end and able to get back to the inside and assist on that tackle. Another one here, like the communication there, right? He's walking up into the box, he's pushing his linebackers over, and then he ends up being the unblocked defender from the backside of that play, able to come through and make the tackle for loss. And then last one here, another goal line play. This time he's more over the top, right in the middle. Ends up being part of that reason that the ball doesn't get in. And like the play we talked about earlier, this was another game sealing play for Taaffe. So he has a knack for being involved in those type of plays. And then just a couple of box plays where they didn't turn out so well for Taaffe. So this one gets a free run in there at the running back, diving at the feet, ends up missing completely. And this ends up turning into a touchdown. And then the other one that I had here, Taaffe again walking up into the box, pushing those linebackers over. But now I've got a lineman coming through, and Taaffe either doesn't see him or just does an awful job taking on the block. Actually, it's a tight end there that motions in, but you can see that the number 87 here is able to almost knock Taaffe on the ground and essentially take him out of the play on that one. And then blitzing, I just have two clips here. He was not used on blitzes very often by Texas. There you can see that he's blitzing, dodging around that offensive lineman. Maybe affects the throw a little bit. But then we have this other one where he's coming off the edge and going against a running back, and he's able to knock that running back to the ground, force the quarterback out of the pocket. So, can't say whether it's necessarily good or bad as a blitzer. Seems like he times them up pretty well, but there just wasn't enough reps to really, make a definitive statement on how he is. And then I want to make sure to finish up on a good note. So we're going to look at open field tackling to finish this up. And we're going to look at the negative reps first. So we got Taaffe on the top of the screen here. And you can see that it is a run to the outside. And this is where, when you get into the open field and you try to tackle low and you miss, thankfully he had lots of help around him, right? But it creates more opportunities to miss when you're in the open field. Then we're going to get Taaffe down here towards the middle of your screen or the middle of the field. And on this one, wasn't in coverage, right? But as we get down to the goal line, you have got to be able to knock that receiver out of bounds and prevent a touchdown. And we're going to see that from another angle here. And you can see that, yeah, that's a bigger receiver, maybe even a tight end. I'm not sure, right? But here, you have got to be able to knock him out of bounds and prevent a touchdown. Another one here, Zachariah Branch catching it. Looking like Tyreek Hill there with a little head fake. Taaffe has help. He needs to stay to the outside here and not give up this angle. So even though it's not a tackle attempt, right, I still consider that a missed tackle. Another one here, just kind of overrunning it, right? Number 4 is working to the outside there. Taaffe goes to the outside, ends up putting himself into poor position, and going to have one kind of similar here, right? He takes that underneath angle along with his teammate, and when you take that underneath angle, you have to be able to make that tackle. It doesn't get a whole lot more from that, but would like to see him, as he's pursuing there, take this lane there and get in front of that receiver as opposed to trying to drag him down from the back. And then we got two more here. Similar idea, just getting too far up into the trash. And he ends up getting tied up with another player that's getting blocked, almost a 2-for-1 type deal. Ends up giving up a much bigger run than that needed to be. And then last one here. Once again, not taking a great angle. Got Concepcion coming across the formation on the jet sweep. Taaffe reads it well and, just doesn't take a great angle. Not able to make the tackle. Ends up resulting in a touchdown. And then the last set of plays we're going to look at is better open field tackling. And maybe some of these don't, maybe open field tackling isn't the best way to describe them. Because a lot of these, like this first one, are going to be more so just doing a better job of understanding where your teammates are, right? So here, he's closing in there. His teammate gets a hand on him, but he is in a good position to clean this up as he moves into position. Next one here Again, on the outside, understanding that his teammate has outside leverage this time on Zachariah Branch, not getting too fast to the outside there. So as Branch moves to the inside, Taaffe is there to help make the tackle. On this one, again, just understanding he's got help to the inside, he's got sideline to the outside, so just a good angle here, able to take his receiver out of bounds. This one coming from depth, another good example of understanding where his help is. This corner at the top of the screen has outside leverage, so no reason for Taaffe to continue to the outside there. Taaffe stays to the inside. He's there to make the tackle. On this one, another jet sweep. Again, understanding where the leverage is of his teammates, reading where that receiver is going to turn it up, coming up to make the touchdown saving tackle. Another one, just finding a good lane there. Cornerback has the outside leverage, so Taaffe can run that inside lane, and he's able to be part of the tackle on that one. Now, this one, quarterback scrambles around quite a bit. Not necessarily, I didn't know where else to put this one, but I liked that Taaffe, being on the far side of this, understands where all the help is and doesn't over pursue. So as the quarterback also sees where all that help is, cuts back, Taaffe is in a good position to prevent the tackle on that one. Here again, working deep, throw short. Now on this one, felt like he did a pretty good job of, playing through that blocker that was out there and able to get hands-on Concepcion to take him out of bounds. Now this you know, isn't going to be a Sports Center highlight by any means, but at the same time, when you look at the space that was behind Taaffe, if he doesn't make that tackle, thought that being able to use that sideline and get Concepcion out of bounds, thought this was a good enough open field type play. And then last one here, this is going to be Taaffe, works up, works back, right? He's 12 yards deep, able to come up and make the play on the quarterback for a 5-yard gain. So thought this was probably one of the better open field tackles because he gets up there, right, closes the space but not too far, breaks down, lets that quarterback makes the move, and then makes the tackle in open field to finish it up. Final thoughts on Michael Taaffe. Am I as high on him as I was going into the draft? Probably not. His athletic limitations showed up more than my original scouting, but that's why we go back and we do these reviews where we're watching, half a season or more of full game tape of these players that are picked by the Miami Dolphins. I do think he's got a chance to start in 2026, more so because there are no safeties that have a firm grasp on a starting spot right now. Taaffe is more athletic than some of the other guys in the room, including a guy like Dante Trader Jr. And Taaffe is a player that's likely going to pick up the playbook very quickly. I think that's going to be a big part of what we see from the starting safeties early on in this scheme. I don't think he's ever going to be a plus starter, right? I think he, on a more talented roster, he's probably your fourth or fifth safety, does have a knack for coming up for some timely plays, but he's not a box safety. And I think he has to clean up his tackling some, but he has the skills to play in a deep half or occasional center field type role. In the end, I think that Taaffe is a player that's likely going to carve out a long NFL career as a core special teams player and somebody that, is a reserve as a safety that can come in, play some spot duty, and you don't have to worry about him blowing coverages or being out of position. So, as always, I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Make sure to stay tuned. We have several more coming out. We have several of them that are out there already. So always appreciate you guys watching these videos, leaving comments, liking them, subscribing to the channel, right? And I guess that's it. And we will see you again for the next one.